The Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond.
You're awful.
And A.J. Applegarth.
It's Sin Shu Chu. It's a mouthful.
All right. Welcome to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. My name's Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me, as always, AJ Applegarth. What's up, man?
Too much. Just working through these internet issues, but got it figured out and ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, we're only starting 25 minutes late today. It's no big deal.
It's pretty good for me, though.
Lately, it feels like, yes. Absolutely. So, All right, man. Well, today we are going to be covering second base and shortstop. Last week we did catchers and first base with Rudy Gamble. So if you didn't get a chance to listen to that one yet, go back and find it on YouTube or on iTunes. Today, though, we've got Jonathan Chan with us to get us through the second base and shortstop previews. So let's welcome him aboard. What's going on, man?
Not too much, guys. How's it going?
Good.
Good.
So before we jump into the position previews, I wanted to bring you on a little bit earlier than we usually do for our guests, but because we've got the big Manny signing yesterday. Went to the Padres, 10 years, $300 million, opt-out clause after 5 years. So a pretty big deal. There was a lot of talk that he wasn't going to get the $300 million. We've still got Harper hanging out there. I have no idea what this guy's doing, but so wanted to ask you guys, and Jonathan, we'll start with you. What are your initial thoughts about the signing? Like, is this good, bad? Whatever for Manny, like it stays the same?
For Manny as a player, great. If you can get $300 million, then you did well. But fantasy-wise, San Diego's not the greatest hitters environment, but Petco's not been terrible. It's been about league average in park factor last year. And the lineup around him is getting better. Tatis is going to come up. Luis Urias is going to be there. Myers is still there. Hosmer's there. So it's not a terrible lineup. It's not going to be, the Dodgers, but Manny's still going to be Manny. 30 home runs, close to 100 RBIs should be expected.
I don't know if you can call the Dodgers lineup a juggernaut anymore. But anyway. AJ, so I want to get your thoughts on just what this lineup is going to be and how it's going to shake out. Now, clearly, everybody thinks that Manny's going to third. You've got a mix of Kinsler and Urias at second and short, and then you've got Hosmer moving over to first. That puts Will Myers back in the outfield. And then now it's a crowded outfield. So you got Manny Margot, you've got Hunter Renfroe, and a guy who a lot of people like, including myself entering the year, Fran Mel Reyes, who came up last year and, average wasn't a plus tool for him, but guy can mash. Dude can just hit the crap out of the ball. And he was a 40 home run threat this year, I thought. But now I'm kind of wondering, who do you see getting the short end of the rotation here?
The easy answer, I guess, would be whoever's not performing. But, I don't know. I'm not really big on this group of outfielders. I feel like Margot is really more of your speed guy. Reyes is definitely an interesting guy to have. I'd like him to potentially stay in. I think it's going to be between Renfroe and Margot, honestly, and it could just rotate, daily. hopefully it doesn't rotate daily because that would really screw things up for fantasy. But yeah, I'm not loving this outfield.
It's interesting because I've got Reyes in a dynasty league. I actually one that Jonathan is in with me, and I picked up Reyes last year off free agency, and he's a 40th round keeper for me, so I'm gonna keep him. But this does cast a little bit of doubt as to what his role is, but it depends on where you look as to who thinks, who is getting the less plate appearances. And if you look at a site like Roster Resource, who I use all the time, and they're pretty spot on with what they have, they think they've got Reyes in the minors to at least start the year. So that was pretty shocking to me. And then if you look at the updated Steamer projections, which is what one of the projections I use to help do my rankings, you've got Reyes with 545 plate appearances. And the outfield breaks down like this for them. It's Will Myers with 591, Reyes with 545, Margot with 504, and then Renfroe for 427. I mean, that seems like a lot of plate appearances between four different guys. I guess they're figuring Myers is going to potentially slide into first every now and then, but then you look at the plate appearances for Hosmer, and he's up at 657. So how many days off is he really getting there? Something just doesn't really add up to me. The only thing I can think of, and this is what made me think, okay, now it sort of starts to make sense, is Urias could potentially move over to second base, and Kinsler could be more of a utility. No, I mean, not even utility. He would be like the backup second baseman. And then they would move Manny over to short, and then put Myers or Hosmer back at third and Myers back at first. And then that could open up all three outfielders again. So I guess they could tinker with their lineup to do that, and that's how they would get all the plate appearances for them. But it just seems like a lot of moving pieces, a lot of unknown. It really does cast some doubt going into drafts here, more recent, in the next couple of weeks until we kind of see it play out in spring training. I don't think we're really going to know much. But it is very interesting to kind of see how the lineup was going to shake out for them.
Well, yeah, looking at the draft chart or depth chart, sorry, on ESPN, I was trying to find it on MLB to see what they had. I mean, they're showing Will Myers not even as an outfielder, like first, second, or third. They just have him as the backup first baseman.
Yeah, I don't use ESPN.
Which
that's why I don't use their depth charts. I use Roster Resource. It is one of the best out there, if not the best depth chart out there. MLB, like, they're usually far behind, and I don't know. I don't really quite understand what they do sometimes with their depth charts, so I just don't even use them. But
yeah, I mean, looking at Myers' stats, though, I mean, hit 253 last year, only 11 homers, only 39 RBIs. I feel like he didn't play a lot of games last year.
Well, yeah, he was
he only had 312 at bats. So yeah, he was out a lot too.
Yeah, he was banged up, and that's another thing. How he stayed healthy for a couple of years there was because of the move to first base, or at least everybody thought it was. I mean, remember all the years he played in the outfield, and he was just consistently hurt. And Jonathan and I were talking about that before the show. Is just you're now asking for an injury for him. And one of the things that I was chatting with Tyler Thompson right as soon as this trade happened, and one of the things he says is one of the outfielders needs to be traded and should be traded. And he kind of hopes that Will Myers is on the move, honestly. And I kind of agree with him. So I don't know. It's interesting. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. We do have a big show ahead of us, but it needed to make sure we talked about that. Hopefully next week we'll have some signing news with Bryce Harper and the rest of the guys to finally close out this free agency that just is dragging on forever. But that said, let's get moving here with the favorite segment of AJ and I's, and that is the... Oh, come on.
Beer
Of the week. Love the delay. Thank you for doing that to me every time I try to play it out like that. Jonathan, you are the guest. You go ahead and lead, man.
All right. Maybe not quite beer. I'm just going with an apple cider this week. Drove up at about an hour and a half east of Toronto to the Big Apple Brewery. It's 100% Ontario Orchard apples and pretty solid. Well worth the drive.
Nice. Unfortunately, I'm not an apple cider guy, but I'm sure it is good if you like that kind of thing. AJ, what you got, man?
I had the choice between the apple cider and a coffee beer I bought in Montreal, and I have class tomorrow morning, so I'm not about to hit the caffeine this late.
Fair enough. AJ, what you drinking?
So I picked up a random new 6-pack for tonight, and it is. I feel like I need to be getting, Bill Walton over to the crib here to watch this Duke UNC game with me and drink some of this beer, seeing as he's like the world's biggest deadhead. But it's Dogfish Head and the Grateful Dead present American Beauty, which, for those of you who might not know, is a Grateful Dead album. And it's basically the description on the side of the 6-pack is a long, strange trip with the Grateful Dead inspired this pale ale brewed with granola, honey, and all-American hops. It's a pale ale. It's only 6.5%, going a little light tonight, but it's pretty good, man. Definitely enjoying the headiness of this beer.
All right. AJ likes some head. Anyway. All right. So I've got, I told you I went to Virginia a couple weekends ago and picked up some beers down there that I can't get around here. And one that I picked up was a Stablecraft IPA. Just farm fresh IPA. I mean, that's all it says. Pretty basic name, but I guess it works. So I don't know. It's just kind of a standard IPA. I mean, but it's good. I mean, there's really nothing special to it. It's just kind of a middle of the road IPA, and it's just, it's solid. That's all I gotta say about it, really. But I'd probably get it about a 3 3/4 on tap, so it's up there with some good ones. So, all right, well, let's get to this. Jonathan, you ready to get going?
Let's do it.
All right, so second base. How we kind of do things here for these previews is we let you give your strategy heading into drafts. For the position. And of course, look, we know things change, but generally heading into a draft, you've kind of got an idea like, all right, I kind of I'm going to either try to wait a little bit or go early or whatever. So want to get your take on the second base strategy that you have.
Okay, so second base this year, it's a deep position, but kind of not at the same time. So hear me out on this one. I guess if I'm looking at any ranking site, so I'm looking at NFBC right now. Their top 4: Javier Baez, Jose Altuve, Whit Merrifield, Ozzy Albies. Great, solid. I'm happy with any of those guys on my team. Afterwards, you have a bunch of guys that are going to be productive, but have a lot of question marks around them. So guys moving down like Jonathan Villar, Travis Shaw, like D. Gordon, guys like that, where if, they can produce, but there's question marks. And, it's something like if I'm drafting and because of the question marks surrounding some of the later guys, I would prefer to hit second base early, and have have somebody solid that you can count on, as opposed to gambling on, say, Daniel Murphy not being hurt or Rugnedor hitting above 200 this year. So I think unless you're feeling risky, go second base early and then fill out other positions later.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. There is a pretty big drop off and a lot of risk with guys later. There's guys that have huge holes in their game later on, and like you mentioned, Dino Murphy with the injuries, and we'll get into him a little bit here very soon. But AJ, you got anything else to add to that?
No, I mean, pretty much on board with that same philosophy. It's really, there seems to be a really hard line being drawn, like right at 4, between 4 and 5 there with Albies and Gleyber Torres. So it's pretty interesting to see how big of a drop off. And you look at guys that are a little bit lower on that list too, a D Gordon, a Robbie Cano, who were guys that used to be, those top picks that you would get, but definitely some question marks for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to talk about a bunch of these guys, so let's just jump right into it. And Jonathan, you mentioned Dino Murphy there, so we obviously know how good Dino Murphy was in 2016 and 2017, and then last year returned from the knee injury, wasn't quite the same. He had some streaks where it was like, all right, here's Dino Murphy, but it never quite all came together, it felt like, for him. This year he's in Colorado, and there's a lot of optimism because of Colorado, obviously. But he is 33, going on 34 at some point early in the season. What are we thinking? Like, what can we expect from Dino Murphy heading into 2019?
Well, the biggest thing you're going to expect from Murphy is injuries. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, if he's able to, play 140 games, you're going to be happy with what you get. Even, he's getting older. He is going to play first base. He qualifies as second, but he's penciled in as the Rockies' everyday first baseman. So kind of like what you were talking about earlier with Myers, hopefully it keeps him healthy, so he can play more games. With Murphy, he's not going to steal bases anymore, but you're looking at over, like maybe close to 600 at bats. You can get 20 homers, 90 RBI, 90 runs. He's hitting, I'm guessing, in front of Arenado, so he's going to score as long as he gets on base, which is what he does. So provided he stays healthy, you'll get 75% of 2017 Daniel Murphy, hopefully.
You would probably take that where you can get him in drafts right now, so that's pretty solid. I guess you can really hope that he busts out for some more home runs, and I don't know if you can expect more than what he did in 2016 and 2017 as far as power, but if he can match that number, you're going to be super happy. So
yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I definitely think he should be a 22, the 25 homer guy. I'm not necessarily in love with him, but I don't, if he falls to me at the right time, I think I would be okay taking him.
Yeah, so the next guy here, I think, is probably one of the most, I don't know, I can't think of the right word right now, but he's super propped up in some people's rankings and just buried in others. We don't really know what to think of this guy, and it's Alder Berto or Raul Mondesi, whoever you want to call him, for the Royals. Like, he came on last year, and in a short period of time, had a great season. 17 home runs, or 14 home runs, 32 stolen bases in 75 games. I mean, that's solid. Now, you can't project that out to a full season or he'd be the best player in baseball. Projections are ranging all the way from 18 home runs, 35 stolen bases, to 23 home runs and 48 stolen bases. So he's all over the board. We clearly know speed is going to be there. I think the biggest question for him is the power. Like, is the power going to be there? Is the batting average going to be there? I have this, like, funny feeling he's like Byron Buxton all over again. It's like, oh, he had a great second half. Let's draft him super early, and then he's going to just do nothing for us. Jonathan, what are your thoughts on Mondesi?
I am on the complete burying side of Mondesi just because where he's being drafted. I've done a few mocks on different sites and I see him top 50 most of the time. And it's actually super frustrating because people, they, like you said, they're projecting him, for his 14 and 32 over a full season. And it kind of throws off the whole market at second base. But we're talking about a guy who only walked 3.8% of the time, which is the third worst among qualified batters. He struck out 27% of the time, which is the 11th most among qualified batters. And you're talking like near Joey Gallo territory here, which is dangerous when you talk about a guy who already struggles to hit for average.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, last year he hit 275 in his, 74 games? And his minor league career average was 258. So if you're projecting anywhere above his minor league average, then there's something wrong because he's not improving, 20% over his minor league numbers in the majors just like that.
Yeah, I think the biggest draw with him is obviously going to be the stolen bases. I mean, I'm just looking at the Steamer projections here, and they're showing him at 41. So
right,
that's huge to get out of a second base spot. D. Gordon trailing behind him at 32. So, and that's all D. Gordon really was, that an average. But, Mondesi's not giving you a great average. His OBP is projected to be under 300. I mean, that's pretty bad. If you can get some power out of him, that's nice. I definitely could see him topping, 18 to 20 homers. But, you got to look at this team around him too. And the Royals are just not a good team.
No.
So, besides him and Merrifield, which one would I rather have? I'd rather have Merrifield, hands down. But obviously he's going a lot earlier in drafts.
It's not that much earlier.
Not that much, actually. About 30 to 40, it's about 10, 12 picks. So
yeah, it's not by much, man. Like, he is
pretty
getting
close.
pushed up the board a lot. Dude, what was it? The FSTA draft that you did, he went like second round or third round or something like that. It was super early, and I was like, whoa. And I've seen him go like, that sort of range a couple different times, and in some different drafts that I've looked at and some mocks that I've done. It's pretty startling, the difference, because if he doesn't go that early, I'm on board with Jonathan's thoughts here, and I'm not taking him that high. I'm not going after a guy who's gonna bat 250, 260 and get me hopefully double-digit home runs. I get the steals of the category, but it's not enough of one for me to get crushed in 4 other ones, which is going to be RBI and home runs and probably runs because he's on the Royals and they're not going to score a lot. So it's nothing I'm really super interested in. But it will be interesting to see how he does. I will be keeping an eye on him this year for sure.
Yeah, in FSTA, Merrifield went at the 10th pick in the second round. Mondesi went at the 8th pick in the 4th round.
All right. That's actually not as
You
bad as I
know,
thought. I thought it was third round for some reason.
That's a bigger split. I think that's what I was thinking of. But yeah, based on the NFBC ADPs, they're not far apart. Not that far. So
no, definitely not.
But jumping into our next guy here, I kind of already mentioned his name, Mr. Robbie Cano. Jonathan, what do you think about Cano coming back to the Big Apple, albeit in a different league, in a different uniform? Do you think this move is good for him? Is this going to rejuvenate him coming back to New York?
I don't know if rejuvenate is the right word. He wasn't terrible in Seattle, even after he came back from, all the 80 missed games last year. He hit 317 after he came back, so it wasn't like he was washed or anything. But I think with the Mets, they tried to commit to their lineup anyways to kind of match the rotation. But as long as he's hitting the middle of the lineup, and as long as Conforto stays healthy as well, I think they have a decent enough lineup that Cano is actually, if I'm looking at that area with around him, you have D. Gordon, Odor, Dozier. I'm taking Cano maybe the fourth tier of second baseman, maybe at the top of that tier, just because you know what you're going to get with him. So long as he doesn't get suspended again, he's pretty safe.
Yeah, I guess I just worry about the season that he had a couple years ago, where it was just kind of like, oh, is Cano old? And then all of a sudden he bounced back, and then he got suspended for PEDs. So you're like, oh, was that the reason why he got good again? And so maybe now he's not on them, and who knows really what he's going to get. I think you're going to be able to get average with him. I just wonder, how much power are we really expecting? Is he a 20? I guess I see him more as like a 20-80 type of guy, 20 home runs, 80 RBI, which isn't bad. It's safe. That's basically like who Adam Jones has been for years, right? And so it's fine if you have those types of players, but you need to have, you can't be relying on him to carry your team. He's just a safe second baseman. If that's the way you go, and that's the way you go, and that's fine. Just hopefully you went strong elsewhere.
Yeah, I like Cano. I think he's definitely got the ability. I'm not going to say he's completely old yet. But, we talk about it every year with, you gave the perfect analogy there, Joe, that he's now like, Adam Jones. So you know what you're getting. He's just that boring household name in fantasy. And, there's nothing wrong with that, because boring is usually consistent. So if he can be a 20-80 guy, and then chip in another 70 to 80 runs maybe, that's definitely worth the price that you're going to pay for him. So sticking with New York, we're going to go to the other side and check out the Yankees and their new second baseman, Mr. DJ LeMahieu. Does he have a role on this team? What are we going to expect now that he's not playing half his games in hitter-friendly Colorado? Granted, New York is quite hitter-friendly as well. So, what do you think of LeMahieu, Jonathan?
LeMahieu's good, and he's the same hitter he was. High average, high runs, provided the people behind him can hit. I know that there's some, with Machado signed in San Diego now, I think the Yankees lineup's a little bit more set. But the other option right now at second is, Troy Tulowitzki, or at short. So I guess what the Yankees should be doing, or my opinion anyways, move Torres over to second and then put LeMahieu at short, or put Torres at short and LeMahieu at second.
Yeah,
and then Tulowitzki just kind of, he's a bench bat. He's going to get hurt anyways. I watched the Jays all last year. Tulo's not a starting caliber player anymore. But I think if he plays, and Gregorius, I don't think Didi's coming back until the last quarter of the season. So as long as LeMahieu's getting at bats, he's gonna get on base and he's gonna score runs. With the Yankees lineup behind him, he's a safe bet. Maybe not the power he had in Colorado might not help, but Yankee Stadium's perfectly fine for right-handed power as well. So I think if you're drafting DJ LeMahieu, just take his Colorado numbers, maybe 90% of it, but I'll be happy with that, honestly.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I worry about LeMahieu. I've read too many articles about this and the fact that he's going to be their utility guy, at least to start the year. I'm with you, Jonathan, that Tulo's going to get hurt at some point. I mean, it's just inevitable, man. Like, this guy can't stay healthy anymore. So, but, you know, like what you said, they're going to keep Torres at second. They're going to put Tulo at short, but they shouldn't. They should move Torres over to short, put LeMahieu at second, and then have everybody else and have Tulo just kind of play utility. I mean, I've even heard that LeMahieu, though, can get some first base reps. So, like, you know, whatever. If for fantasy, you don't really want him as your first baseman, but I guess that at least gets him on the field. I hear you with the it's a friendly ballpark for him. It's probably one of the friendlier ballparks he could have gone to, but I still really worry about his home away splits. His home away splits are just drastically different. And you know, batting .317 last year in cores opposed to .229 away just scares the living crap out of me. I've got him in that dynasty league. I mean, I'm gonna keep him because I have like nothing at second base. So I'm like, all right, I just gotta hope he plays enough, and just build depth around him. But he's not a guy that I'm going into a redraft league and thinking, you know, I'm even gonna pick him up as a middle infield option.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked LeMahieu the past few years. I've had him on different teams and in different, you know, league setups, and he's always been solid. But this move here, I just don't understand why they think that Tulo's going to be worth anything. He's 4 years older. He's always been an injury risk, so you know I definitely agree that Torres should stick it at short. I mean, that's his natural position anyways, and let LeMahieu be the guy and make Tulo your all around, you know, bounce around infield guy. I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yep. All right, so we talked. Jonathan, you brought him up earlier, I think, but Brian Dozier, you know, he moved over to Washington to fill in the hole that Dino Murphy left there on a 1-year contract. You know, prove it type contract. We had all excited about Brian Dozier after he kind of struggled last year.
I mean, his struggles weren't. It wasn't. Like, it didn't seem like a 1-year issue. There's just so many things in his profile just kind of dropped off a cliff, and it has me worrying about him because he had to take a 1-year contract. Like his line drives dropped to the lowest percentage of his career. His infield fly ball rate went up, and it's these kind of things. It's not like where his like BABIP dropped, and you know you expect a rebound. It's just one of those. Dozier's always been a second half player, and last year he just didn't have that second half. He just kind of stayed on that first half path and didn't bounce back. I don't know if I would trust Dozier as my starter, or I definitely wouldn't trust Dozier as my starting second baseman. But even if he does have a good year, I think you're looking at what we were saying earlier with Robbie Cano, maybe 20 home runs, 80 RBI. I don't think Dozier is going to be stealing much anymore because they want to keep him healthy. So, yeah, I mean, if he bounces back, you're looking at an average second baseman, but he's not going to be, you know, the second half savior that he was in Minnesota.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there with him always being this second half kind of guy,
Mm-hmm.
and just really running with that. He's still a pretty big strikeout guy for me, though. So if you're in a league where you get dinged on that, you know, you just got to keep that in mind. But I mean, he's going around 135 or so is ADP, I believe. So that's 138 on NFBC. I mean, that's still a pretty high price to pay, I feel like, for average at best, and hoping that the power is going to be there. I mean, the one thing working in his favor is that he is in a pretty solid lineup with Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Anthony Rendon. So he's got more protection around him. I like seeing that, but I mean, he went in the 7th round and in the FSTA, so that's pretty high in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think people are just hoping that he can put it all together finally, but he's always been kind of super streaky. The last guy here I want to talk about, kind of up there with. He reminds me of like who Mondesi. He's another guy that reminds me of, one of those. Oh, he's getting all this hype. He had a couple good spots here and there. Jurickson Profar. I mean, everybody kind of just has forgotten about this guy for years, right? Like, he never could figure it out once he got called up, wasn't getting the playing time. The last year in Oakland, finally figured something out, man. Like, he had a good season. I was actually shocked when I saw it when I was looking at his stats this year. I did the rankings, and I was like, why is Profar ranked so high? And I was like, oh, he was actually, like, worth using last year. I didn't even realize it for some reason because I was paying zero attention to this guy for so many years. Is he like the clear post hype type player? And he's still going relatively late because I think there's enough people like me who are hesitant to pull the trigger on him. But what do you think? What do you think in there with him, Jonathan?
No, I think people are right to be hesitant with Profar. We haven't seen nearly enough of him at the major league level. Like I said, we had him last year, came out of, relatively nowhere. I mean, he was being hyped for, 6 years in the minors before he finally got a chance in the majors. 20 home runs last year, 10 steals. Still at the Rangers, I believe. This year he's going to Oakland. I think if you're expecting 2010...
Oh, yeah, my bad. I switched that up.
Yeah, no worries. I didn't even realize. Like, I was like, oh, why is Profar, like you said, like, why is Profar ranked so high?
I mean, 20 home runs, like, that kind of came out of nowhere, I felt like. But okay, it was okay. 20 and 10, you'll take that, right? That's good.
Career high, but I wouldn't expect the power to come back in Oakland. Arlington and Oakland are completely different parks, and the Coliseum is not going to help the power numbers. No. It only helps Chris Davis is the only player that I can consistently crush there, and it's awesome to watch him do that. Profar is not that player. I'd maybe expect 15 homers out of him, maybe a few more steals, but again, he provides you those safety-like numbers, but he's an unsafe player because you have no idea what he's going to do for a follow-up. So even in that range, he's not going super high. I think he's going... why can't I find him here? Where's he going?
He might not be under second base.
Yep, there he is. He's going 120. So, I mean, if you move that over to the second base area, you're looking at Cano, D. Gordon, Odor, Dozier. So, risk all around. But I guess if you want to go with a younger player, then Profar is probably the preferred option.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
sorry.
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
huge on him myself either. I just think there's way too much risk reward tied together on this pick. So,
yeah, I don't really know what to think of him. Like I said, so we'll see how it shakes out. It's an interesting one. So, all right, Jonathan, how we like to finish up the positions here is for us to give one overvalued and one undervalued player. Go ahead and give your overvalued player.
Okay. Overvalued this year, I'm going with Jonathan Villar. Right now, he's ranked as the sixth second baseman on NFBC. I don't get it. I don't understand how people can trust him after the last 3 years of what he's done. He had one good year, completely destroyed fantasy owners in his follow up year, and then had 60 good games last year, and all of a sudden all is forgiven. I don't buy it. He's still a low average, low power, low RBI guy, like similar to D Gordon with slightly more power. He kills you in 4 categories. Maybe he'll get the steals, but he's too inconsistent for my liking. And he's going 86th overall as the sixth second baseman. Way too high for the kind of inconsistency he brings.
So I'm gonna go switch out of order here a little bit just because I know what AJ is gonna say here next. VR was my overvalued player as well, for all the reasons you just said, and I'm gonna let AJ do his undervalued player here because this is very interesting that you said that.
Well, my undervalued player here is Jonathan Villar. I mean, yes, I can see the arguments that you guys are making here, but the way I'm looking at this is I'm splitting up his year last year from Milwaukee to the Orioles. And when you look at what he did with the Orioles, in 54 games played, average wasn't great, but it wasn't horrendous at 258, had a 336 OBP, 28 runs on a pretty terrible team, 8 homers, 24 RBIs. Okay, so again, that's only 54 games played. But what he did with Milwaukee in 87, average slightly better, lower OBP, two less runs, 2 less homers, 2 less RBIs, and 7 less stolen bases. Sorry, he had 21 stolen in Baltimore versus 14 in Milwaukee. So, I mean, is he going to duplicate that? I don't know, but he's going to be such a focal point of this Baltimore team right now that you have to like him. I mean, he's got the opportunity. He's going to play every day, or near it. And, is he going to get back to what he did a couple of years ago in Milwaukee? I think he can. Again, strikeouts have been a problem with him in the past. Wasn't as much of an issue this past year, but I like VR a lot.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just think there's guys behind him, at least a few guys behind him that are going to be able to help you out in more categories than VR can, and I would much rather have them. I know you're not getting the stolen bases out of those guys like Scooter Gannett and Murphy and Shaw and guys like that, but I'll take them any day over VR because VR, especially on this Baltimore team that is just void of talent, he's not going to hit in anybody. He's going to be batting leadoff. He's got to be. He's not going to score a lot of runs. Average is shaky for him. He's not going to hurt you, but he's not going to help you either. It's just, as the sixth second baseman in ADP according to NFBC, that shocked me when I saw that. I looked at my rankings, was like, where do I have him? Oh, he's 13th. Like, it's a drastic difference. So that was an easy pick for me. But all right, AJ, since we kind of went out of order for you here, go ahead and give your overvalued as well.
Well, my overvalued is Ozzy Albies. I mean, he's the guy that I was talking about. He's that line between him and Torres. He's up at 4 in NFBC. So obviously they like him. The ADP is 55, but you got to look at the underlying numbers here too. I mean, he was the ultimate sleeper pick, not really even a sleeper. He was just the ultimate reward guy last year for the first half of the season. But his pre-All-Star game stats, he was hitting 281 with a 318 OBP, 74 runs, 20 homers, 55 ribbies, 9 stolen bases. What he did after the All-Star game is a hot mess. He dropped all the way down to a 226 average and 282 OBP. The runs were still okay, 31, but only 4 homers and 17 RBIs and then 5 stolen bases. So, I mean, that's kind of in line, but the power was a massive drop-off. And, you know, he's in a solid lineup with a lot of talent around him. So I think he can rebound, but I'm just not paying that price for a half of year stats.
Yeah, that's a solid one. That's a solid one. I can get on board with that. All right, Jonathan, let's shift over to undervalued. What you got?
Undervalued. So this might depend on your league's eligibility rules, but I'm gonna go with Max Muncy. I mean, last year I know a lot of people are kind of throwing him down the rankings because they think there's gonna be some regression. But honestly, even if you take away his he hit 35 home runs in 137 games. Even if you build in some regression, you're looking at somebody that's going to hit 25 to 30 home runs. He's got a great batting eye, walks 16% of the time. You know, he's a powerful guy. That again, like you said, Joe, the Dodgers lineup isn't quite the juggernaut it was, but I think Muncy's being taken past pick 100. And for somebody that could hit 30 home runs at a pretty questionable position, it's, you know, gold past pick 100. Honestly, if you can get 30 home runs and a pretty, he had 391 OBP last year, that's a lot of production you're getting at a very cheap price.
Yeah, Muncy was a guy that we talked about last week with Rudy Gamble, and he's another one of those, like, I don't know if I trust him yet to really draft him. You know, it's like, you know, I think most people are getting him as first base, right? So it's one of those, yeah, he had a phenomenal season, but it just feels like the Dodgers have those guys every year that come up and just blow the lid off of things, right? And then the next year, like, what happened to that guy? Like, where'd he go? He sucks now. You just have this bad feeling in your gut that Max Muncy is going to be that guy again. So I don't discount what you said. I don't like the riskiness because the numbers were pretty phenomenal for him last year compared to like the rest of his career. So you gotta wonder if at this age he can continue that. But yeah, where he's going, you know, to take the risk on him for possibly 30 home runs, I'm probably gonna have him in a couple of different leagues this year just because I'll take that chance. So I hear you there. That's a good one. I like it. AJ, we already did yours, VR, so I'll finish up things here. I'm going to go with an old Baltimore guy, Jonathan Scope. 2 years ago, 30 home runs. 25 the year before that. It was coming on real strong. And then last year, things just kind of bottomed out for him. I attribute that to just the Orioles being a hot mess, right? And everybody kind of struggled with the exception of Manny. And Scope, I think, all these trade rumors were just distracting the team and just the shuffle in the whole infield. It's just a lot. The move to Milwaukee I thought was going to be good for him. It ended up being way worse. He really kind of stopped playing. The swinging strike rate went way up for him. He didn't feel like he really wanted to be there. It just wasn't right. He wasn't even an everyday player. Even when they were like playing him more regularly, he wasn't an everyday player, and that's not what he needs. He needs just regular at bats. And now he's with Minnesota. Yeah, not a fantastic ballpark, but dude, I don't know if you guys have really looked at the Minnesota lineup. They've loaded up on power, and it's going to be interesting to just see them just try to smash the ball every day. And I think we could see him, Jonathan Scope that is, get back to 30 home runs if some things fall right this year for him. So, and he's going super late. ADP on where is he going here? I had him and then I lost him. Yeah, Jonathan Scope, 16th second baseman off the board with an ADP of 181, almost 182. So he's, nearing the ends of the draft there. So, rounds, middle of the draft, I guess. It's around 16-ish, something like that, if I'm doing the math quickly in my head. So, all right, that's it for second base. So let's move over to shortstop here, Jonathan. What you got for a quick draft strategy as you head into your drafts this year?
So draft strategy for shortstops, nearly the complete opposite that second base is, where if you're looking at shortstops, the top 12 are legitimate players that you can say, yeah, I'm comfortable having these guys as my starter. So number one, maybe 2 or 3 or 4, depending on your injury risk, I guess, averseness. But start number 1 with Francisco Lindor, and then number 12, you go down to Corey Seager. If I can wait till the 12th shortstop off the board, number 85, to get Corey Seager, I'm more than happy waiting on shortstop. There's a lot of depth here, and there's a lot of players that could be first, second round talents going 12th overall or 12th of shortstops. Yeah, I'm okay waiting and loading up somewhere else. No problem.
Yeah, short's a position that I definitely think you can wait on and still get solid, solid play, solid guys that are just sitting there. I love the Seager pick. If you can sit and wait for him that far, I mean, you've got Profar, who's also short eligible. We already talked about him. Even Mr. Media himself, Tim Anderson, who's been pretty outspoken so far with this Manny signing. I think he's worth a shot. He can put up some points and get some category help for you.
Tim Anderson, dude, has been a guy that I've had on my teams multiple years in a row, and I feel like I fall for the trap every time. He feels like that guy. You're just like, oh man, if just he gets a little bit luckier, or if he gets to get a little bit more power, it's all gonna be there, and he's gonna be a top 10 player for his position. It just never happens, man, and I think I'm finally done with him. I know it's gonna happen this year because I'm not gonna go in after him, but and the other reason why I usually go after him is because I don't go heavy after steals early in my drafts. So I'm always thinking, oh, he's a cheap resource of steals later in drafts, and he could potentially get me double-digit home runs too. And yeah, he does end up doing it, but God, he has these moments, these weeks where he just can't hit the ball. And I play him mostly head-to-head leagues. I can't deal with that. If he's my starting shortstop, it just kills you. But it is a tempting pick every time you get to that ballpark where you're like, oh, Tim Anderson. No, I'm not doing it this year. Just if I do it this year after 3 beers or in our draft, somebody make fun of me because I'm
Gladly. Done and done.
Done and done. Mark that down.
I think I'm gonna take Tim Anderson with my 8th round pick this year.
Oh God, it's gonna be like last year when every single pick was, "You taking Billy Hamilton? You taking Billy Hamilton? Huh?
Yes. How far he fell, and man, we were right. The whole draft room was like, "What?" I was even kind of shocked. Like, why does nobody want this guy? Like, I thought somebody would go after him, and no. Interesting. All right, AJ, go ahead and lead this, man.
All right. So, first big topic question guy we have here is, I believe, your 10th round keeper, Joe. Javier Baez.
Is it 10th? Yeah, 10th. Yep.
What's the deal here? Is this guy finally, arrived and he had his huge breakout last year. Is he repeating this? Is this what he is now? We finally get to see it, or is he going to fall back to, what he was producing more as the super utility for Chicago? Jonathan, what do you think?
He's not going to go back to super utility. Obviously, he's going to get as many at-bats as he can handle, but the home runs are coming down. I hate to rain on everybody's parade, but the home runs are not staying at 34. I mean, his home run fly ball rate went up, and he's in the range of Chris Davis, the good Chris Davis, Kyle Schwarber, Nelson Cruz. You can't convince me that Javier Baez has the same kind of power as those three guys, and he's just not hitting enough fly balls to maintain that kind of power. I can buy that he'll steal 20 bases again, but I think the power's coming down to 25, maybe 20, depending on the kind of luck he gets. And I think NFBC, he's the fourth shortstop. I think the first second baseman on NFBC. So it's tough. If you're taking him, that's your end of the first round, beginning of the second. And if he kind of regresses, then you're left with a big hole in your lineup because you're expecting first round talent. You might be getting third round production.
Yeah, again, AJ said it. I've got him as a 10th round keeper. My team was in the what last year, so I ended up trading some good players, ended up getting Baez back in return, and I did it specifically for the 10th round keeper. I knew even if there was some regression, a 10th round value for Baez was pretty phenomenal. But I do expect the home runs to come down. I can see him still hitting around like 25, and look, I'll take that. His batted ball profile, is getting better every year. He's hitting harder. He is hitting. Actually, his fly balls went down last year, but he's just hitting the ball harder. Is really what it comes down to. So like that matters too. I'm thinking around 25 home runs. Projections have him around 30. I'm kind of surprised at that, considering he's only had 1 year above 23, and that was last year. So you would think that they would catch on and think, maybe not. But look, the guy's 26, prime career years here. So I'm looking forward to a few years of Javi Baez at a cheap price on my team. So there we go. Moving on here to got another guy who had a lot of hype coming in and then kind of fell off, and then last year he just back gangbusters, man, just blew it out. And it was also with the steals, and that's Trevor Story. I don't think anybody thought Trevor Story was stealing as many bases as he did last year. And he's still projected for upwards of 20, but he stole 27 last year. Everybody knew the power was legit. Batting average was super high too, for him, I feel like. But what do we think with Story this year, Jonathan? Obviously power is going to be there, right? But what do we think about the steals? That's what's making him such a high pick this year.
Yeah, I don't think you can realistically expect the steals to stay that high. He had 27 last year. He had a couple injury scares that I can remember. So I think the Rockies might curtail that a little bit to keep him healthy. But honestly, Story, everything in his profile looked like you wanted to. The strikeouts went down by 10% over the year before. The batted ball profile, the hard hits, the line drives, the fly balls, everything stayed where you wanted it to. And I don't see any reason why the home runs would tank. I don't know if he'll hit close to 40 consistently, but we knew he has power coming in, and I think he can maintain it. His contact rate jumped by 7%. So even if he's not, hitting 40 homers, at least he won't strike out, 35% of the time anymore, and he won't completely tank your average. So, regardless, I think Story's, geez, he's a borderline first rounder if you want solid middle infield production, honestly.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the whole? So, obviously, last year was 27 stolen bases. Projections have him anywhere between 18 and 20, so they're not very, obviously they're lower and quite a bit lower, but are you thinking that those are feasible numbers, or are you even going lower, like back to his first couple of years where he had 8 and 7?
I probably wouldn't go that low just because now he's comfortable doing it, but I'd probably go closer to 15, maybe, kind of like what Houston did with George Springer. He can steal 30 bases, but he just doesn't, because they want to keep him healthy, or, strategy-wise, whatever they want to do. But I don't think they're going to run him into the ground. I'd probably go 15 steals just to be safe.
Yeah.
And you're drafting him for the home runs. And any steals are a bonus.
Sadly, though, I don't think you are drafting him for just the home runs if you're drafting him in the first round. I mean, there are guys that have legit, 40 home run power that aren't going that high. And granted, their average isn't quite the same, but those guys don't go quite there. I still think if you're not thinking he's going to hit around 25 stolen bases, even low 20s, I think he falls to a middle to end second round pick for me, just because I am kind of afraid that the strikeout rate's going to come back.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a guy who in 97 games in his first year in 2016 had 130 strikeouts, and then in 145 in 2017 he had 191 strikeouts. I mean, that's an absurd rate, and his average was horrendous that year, 239. So obviously the average crept back up a lot last year. The stolen bases were ridiculous. I don't think that they're going to be there as much this year. I could see maybe 20, but it just depends. The interesting thing too that I saw when I was looking him up earlier is that it looked like he actually, see if I can find that stat line I was looking at. His home away splits are, obviously favoring home average wise. He's about, almost 50 points higher, but he ran more on the road than he did at Coors.
That makes sense, though.
Yeah.
You expect Colorado to be able to hit the ball, out of the park more in Colorado. So I can see why that would happen.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, let's move on to our next guy here. So we've already kind of mentioned his name, Mr. Corey Seager. Jonathan, you think he can rebound from his disappointing season in 18? I mean, obviously he was injured the majority of the year, but even before the injury, he really wasn't doing anything. What are your thoughts on him this year?
I love Seager this year. As I was mentioning earlier, I mean, at the price you're getting him, you can't really beat it. He's 20, 25 homer guy, 80 RBIs, 80 runs, solid average. If you play in a doubles league, he's absolute gold. I learned that the hard way a couple years ago. My opponent in the finals had him. I think he had like 12 doubles in the 2-week final. Just destroyed me. But I mean, Tommy John, it's not as debilitating for hitters as it is for pitchers. Coming back, I know he was dealing with some other nagging stuff as well last year, so I don't completely blame him for that season. Honestly, I think he'll come back. He'll be fine. And at the price, you're not going to beat it. Solid, consistent, and with enough talent to really, really bring up the production you get for a 6th, 7th rounder. So perfect draft target here.
Yeah, I agree there. I want to kind of wait and hope I can get him in leagues, but that's risky because I think there's going to be 11 other guys in the league hoping the exact same thing. But so I want to move on here because we are running a little low on time. Paul DeJong is the last shortstop I want to bring up here, and I want to ask you, like, what is he really? He took a small step back last year. He had injuries, but it just seemed like it wasn't clicking as well as it was the year before for him. I'm not really quite sure what Paul DeJong is. What are you thinking, Jonathan?
I mean, I think DeJong for me is closer to what he was last year than in his rookie year. I don't think anybody was expecting him to hit, 25 or hit 285 again with the power. But last year, as you said, the power fell, the average fell dramatically, and I don't know. It's just the rest of his profile. I mean, his walks actually went up, and his strikeouts went down, but he still performed way worse. So I think, yeah, like DeJong is probably closer to what we saw last year. Low average, middling home run guy. So if you need, a middle infielder fill out your lineup at the end of the draft, it's a fine choice, but not somebody that is gonna carry you in home runs like he did in his rookie year, like the 25 and 100 and some games, 108 games, no chance. But a fine end of the draft middle infield guy, like fill it in if you need some power, but he's not going to carry you.
Yeah, I'm not really looking to go after DeJong this year. Pretty much everything you guys mentioned. I mean, the power dropped slightly. It was only 6 less homers and 3 more RBIs. So his stats were pretty in line with each other. But the more walks is nice, helps. But his OBP went down. So I think that's more because his average fell so hard. So yeah, I'd rather jump ahead and move to get somebody that I know is going to be more consistent and help me in average and stolen bases and not just mediocre power.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a little bit more than that. He's another one I got in my dynasty league, so that was a personal question. So, all right, Jonathan, let's finish up here with the over and undervalued. So go ahead and give us your overvalued shortstop.
Okay, overvalued shortstop. I'm going with Gleyber Torres. I know he's popular. He's got that the Yankee tax on him, but honestly, I think there's too many red flags in his profile for me to say, yeah, he's gonna do this again. I mean, last year he hit 24 home runs. In how many games did he play? It wasn't a full season, definitely, but hit 24 home runs, which to that point in his career are equal to like the total number of home runs he's hit in his entire career up to that point, and he matched it just the last season alone. I don't see him repeating anywhere close to the power he did. There's a lot of swing and miss in his game. I mean, he has a 14% swinging strike rate. Just for context, that's the same amount as Chris Davis, like the bad Chris Davis has. So
that's a never good comparison.
No, and there's so much hype around him, and if you're swinging and missing that much, like there's gonna be some regression, and you're gonna have some bad slumps with Torres on your team. And if Gregorius comes back and Torres is struggling, I can see some days off for him with like LeMahieu and Tulowitzki and all this stuff. Not a lot of days off. I'm not saying he's going to go full platoon, but if he starts to struggle and goes into a slump, then there could be some days off, and you're not getting any production if he's on the bench.
Yeah, I'm looking at we're doing overvalued.
Yes.
Over.
Okay.
Way to listen there, AJ.
I'm with it. Well, we screwed it up last time because I bounced around. So, but yeah, my overvalued. I'm going with Mr. 300 mil, Manny Machado. I mean, the stats that I found earlier in regards to his career home runs against the NL West teams is pretty staggering. Now, obviously, he spent his career in Baltimore up until last year. So it's a small sample size, so take that for what it is. But he's only got 9 home runs against the NL West teams, and 4 of them were against the team he is now playing for. He also has 8 home runs total at Chavez Ravine, but 7 of those came last year when he was a Dodger for 111 at bats. Plus, he's been horrendous at Colorado. He only played there last year, but I don't know. I mean, we talked about San Diego already. I don't want to drown it out too much. There's just not a lot of protection in that lineup. Hosmer, and you don't know what you're getting out of Will Myers behind him, and then everything else behind that is just crap until Fernando Tatis Jr. comes up, and depending on where he'll slot in the lineup. But I'm going with Manny.
Interesting. All right, so I know we talked about him during the second base portion of this, but he's also got shortstop eligibility in a bunch of leagues, so I'm going to go with Mondesi. Honestly, Jonathan, you took my Torres pick. You keep taking my guys. So Mondesi, we spoke a lot about him before. He's super risky for where he's going in drafts to me, and we already said it. All the reasons why, so I won't repeat all that. But Jonathan, who's your undervalued pick? And just go ahead and take mine again.
I'll try not to, but if I pick him again, then I'll note it for our draft so I can know who to reach for.
Okay.
Undervalued Marcus Semien. I feel like he's undervalued every year. I mean, right now he's NFBC 205. Did I take him again? Did I do it?
Yes. Yes. I'm not even lying. You definitely
yes. Yeah. Last year, 15 home runs, 14 steals. Actually, do you want to do this one?
Nah, go ahead, man. It's all you. You're the guest.
Yeah, 15, 14. He's going pick 205. I mean, he hit 255, so it's not bad. He gives you solid mix of power, speed, and he scored 89 runs last year. So if you can wait till close to the last round of your draft and pick him up, yeah, that's great value.
100%. All right, AJ.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay, man. It's funny. That's 3 of the 4 you've taken from me. That's pretty awesome. All right.
Well, I'll take the guy that you're going to pick as your replacement, Tim Anderson. No, I'm just kidding. I had originally wrote down Correa because I couldn't get to the NFBC link that we were going off of. That's why I had VR so undervalued as well. I didn't realize he was at 6th. Correa's sitting at 8th, but he's missed some time over the past 2 years, but he fell off hard in the power numbers and in average last year compared to 2017 when he played about the same amount of games, still in a shortened season. But I mean, this is a guy who's got 25 homer, 100 RBI potential, and he's going in the 4th round, so that's pretty solid for going in the 4th round. But the guy that I really like as an undervalued player, I wrote about him in my my part 2 article on the FSTA draft, is Ketel Marte. I mean, the guy's just really starting to put everything together. He's going to be hitting leadoff in what's still a pretty decent Arizona lineup. So I like Marte as a really late pick. I think he's going to 28 or something like that in NFBC. So he's a solid late round guy.
Yeah, those are all guys that were on my short list there, AJ. So I like all those. But the guy I ended up landing on, who, honestly, his ADP ranking of 17th for shortstops is spot on with my ranking. So it's not truly like an undervalued, but I could see him overplaying his draft value pretty easily, and that's Eduardo Escobar. I don't think people realize 2 years in a row now he's hit over 20 home runs. And he did 21 in 129 games 2 years ago for the Twins, and then last year he hit 23 in 151 games. So there's a lot to like here, and for the draft, for what it's going to cost you to get, 23 home runs and 80 RBI, kind of like what you were saying with, damn it, Jonathan, who did you say again? Semien, but the other way around, it was runs scored instead. it's kind of the same thing. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's still worth it at that point. So anyway, Jonathan, that's all we've got for second base and shortstop. Would thank you for coming on and sharing the knowledge with everybody. Before we let you go, though, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you online and what you're getting into?
Yeah, you can find my Twitter at jchant_811. Trying to put up a whole bunch of new content these days, so keep an eye out for that. But if you have any questions, you need to yell at me for hating on Torres, let me know. I'm expecting a whole bunch of that, honestly. But yes, Yankees fans, bring it. But yes, jchant_811, and I'll be ready to discuss anything you want.
Yankees fans, bring it. That is a line I will never say.
I need followers, guys.
Okay, I see how it is. All right. All right, cool, man. Well, again, thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely have you on again this season.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. See ya.
All right. See you, John.
All right, so AJ, that's all I've got, man. Running a little late today, technical difficulties, so I gotta wrap this up unless you got something really important to say.
Nah, not really.
Good to go.
Enjoy your weekend, people.
Yep, enjoy.
Let Bryce sign.
I know, right? I'm so tired of this. And Keuchel and Kimbrel. Just be done with this. It's so stupid. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I will see you all next time. Peace.